Can you see how powerful dreams are? Can you see how important dreams are? How they're telling us where we are on everything we're wanting? And if you don't know the value that the dream is offering, if you don't even know you're dreaming, how can you benefit from the benefit? How can you get the value? You can't. Welcome to Worthiness Wednesday. I'm Perry Gruber, the Enlightenment Guy. For over a decade, I've helped my clients master their mindset so they can live lives they love and get the results they want without the burnout or the hustle. And they do that through this framework I call the Positively Focused Framework. And today we're going to talk about worthiness, as we always do on Wednesday, but we're going to talk about it from a different perspective, a perspective I began last Friday in my personal journal, the Raw blog, where I talked about the power of dreams. So today we're going to talk about dreams, and I have a particular client whose dream experiences are really powerful, and I want to use those experiences he shared in order to show you how powerful your dreams are and how your dreams are showing you where you stand on everything you want. It's really interesting, right? I believe in that Friday episode, in the Raw blog episode, I talked about how one of my clients, a newer client, was talking about why we're not taught this in school. It's a very good question, because your dream experiences, what humans call dreams, what they really are nightly excursions into your non-physical home. What these excursions really are opportunities to marshal and process the momentum you're creating in wake state. Marshal the momentum on the things you want and process the momentum of resistance that is keeping you from realizing what you want in your wake state, in waking life. Now, this is happening in all dimensions in which you exist. If you've heard any of my videos, you know that you are an eternal being and you are experiencing that eternity in multiple dimensions across time and space. And so the dream state is an opportunity for the you that is in your physical body to return to your natural energetic state and process through resistance and marshal energy, allowing you to move closer to that which you want. Now, it's interesting, right? This is really important information to know, where you stand with regard to what you really want. But if you don't know that you're dreaming, and a lot of human beings don't, or if even worse, you know you're dreaming, but you discount them as weird, random mental processings, which they're not, then you're more than likely to miss the extremely valuable information contained in the experiences humans call dreams. So today, I'm going to share 2 dream experiences a client recently had, which showed him specifically where he is relative to a really strong desire he has. Now, I wanted to say unfortunately, but there's no such thing as unfortunate in physical reality, is there? Because everything in physical reality that is happening is positive. So I will just say this client who was in the advanced practice has chosen to leave the Positively Focused Framework in order to try to align himself with where he's wanting to go on his own. This is the second time he's done that over the course of about 7 years. And so his latest departure came as a result of these 2 really powerful dreams we're going to talk about today. And his choice to move away from the practice was not in his best interest because of the negative momentum he has around his waking life experience. But because of that negative momentum, the two dreams he had, which we're going to talk about in this Worthiness Wednesday, the dreams he had occurred to him as nightmares. No dream is a nightmare. It's possible that you might have an experience of the dream, and the dream is so intense that it scares the bejesus out of you. But that kind of a dream is telling you something you really want to know. And contrary to some people's beliefs, as you improve your alignment to the pure positive energy that you are, your dreams also improve. They get to the point where you are experiencing bliss and ecstasy in your dream state, and then you bring that bliss and ecstasy into your waking state, which then colors your waking state experiences. In other words, your waking state experiences, since they are emanations of your inner energetic state and much more aligned with what you're doing in non-physical, when you bring that energy from those really positive dreams into your waking life experience, your waking life experience is therefore influenced by that positive energy, and your life gets better. So this is one of the reasons, this is another good reason why you really want to know where you are relative to what you're dreaming about, because your dreams can get better, and as a result of them getting better, increase your ability to enjoy life experience. So let's talk about the two dreams this guy had. Some background first. This former client has a really strong desire to attract back to him a woman that he knew 3 years ago or so. Now, there are a lot of people, as I said in my raw blog journal entry video, there are a lot of people out in the world who are trying to use law of attraction to draw their lost love back into their lives. And again, this is the importance of the dream state. If you don't know where you are on a particular journey to a certain destination, you can't know how long it's going to take. You can't know whether or not you're going in the right direction. There's a whole lot of good information that comes from knowing where you are. And your dream state is it's really the only best place to realize where you are relative to the future probable reality that you're wanting that contains what it is you want. So this client had this dream, and this dream he interpreted as a nightmare. We're going to talk about it in a minute. And then he was in a state of defeatism, he said, after having the dream. And the more we talked about the dream, the more I tried to get him to see that the dream was positive and telling him something he really wanted to know, the more negative he got, until he started to question. He went into pessimism and doubt. He was pessimistic and doubtful that he could realize his desire. Then he had another dream, and that dream was equally powerful. That dream clued him in on why he's having such a hard time drawing this person back into his life experience, why he's so negative about this person that he really wants to have in his life. And the second dream, the reason why he's so negative is because he's judging his father. Now, I think this is going to be a long Worthiness Wednesday, but let's get into the dreams. So I'm going to share the second one first, and I'm going to disguise his voice so that you, in case you know him, I don't think you do, but in case you run across him, you won't be able to tell who this person is. So I'm going to pause the video and listen to the audio of the dream myself, and then I'm going to come back on. You will have a chance to hear it too, and then I'll come back on and tell you what this dream meant for this client. Okay, let's take a look, or let's take a listen.
I had a dream that I was in the car with my mother and my father and Vladimir Putin, and during the dream, it could have been my grandma's house. That was the driveway, but it couldn't have. But now that I think about it, it couldn't have been my grandma's house because I remember the driveway was very curvy and steepy and it had blind spots. I do know that the car had, actually, it feels like it could have been my car because I know it was a manual and there was definitely a clutch to it. And I remember giving Vladimir Putin the opportunity to drive it, or I think I was very, I think I wanted him to drive it. This part's a little vague, um, but I said, oh, I could drive it too, but I want you to try it. I think I wanted his, I think I wanted his opinion of what it was like to drive my car. And I remember he went up the driveway. The driveway had a lot of curves and blind spots, and it felt like the car was it was just going he went up, he went uphill fast over blind curves. I want to say they were blind curves and turns with a lot of g-force, and he was kind of like he wasn't like super impressed by the car. And my dad, oh yeah, I think we stopped in like a pastry bun or a cinnamon bun shop. They had pastries over there, like some kind of confectionery good. And I don't know if we got one or what, but I remember my dad. He muttered some insult under his breath to me about Putin, and Putin overheard it. He looked like he had like a murderous look in his eyes, and I forget what the insult was. I remember at one point my dad was describing his routine, his schedule, and then he said, "I'll wake up in the afternoon." I think he was saying mid-afternoon, early to mid. This part's a little vague, but he's basically saying like he was waking up in like the late morning or the early afternoon, and now he doesn't even wake up early or mid. It's kind of like the later afternoon, and he just spends all of his day sleeping. And I think Putin was remarking just how sad it was that somebody who was in such who's in such poor health just sleeps their life away. And he was describing his routine, like he gets up, he drives to the gas station, he buys a Snapple, um, he buys jelly beans, he eats a slice of cake, and like those were all habits that my father engaged in real life. But I guess Putin, he was just kind of flabbergasted how somebody close in age with him could have such poor, undisciplined habits, and that was their life. And it was like before he almost had this look like he wanted to have him executed for the insults that he was saying. And then and I think then he just kind of like, he just thought to himself, this man is so pathetic and useless and worthless and has such a nothing life. He isn't even worth my energy or my attention in order to exterminate him. There are more details of this dream, but that's all I can remember this very second.
Okay, so you heard the dream. Very, very powerful, very positive dream. I think what I'm going to do, we'll see how long this video lasts. That was about 6 minutes. So we're right around 16 minutes into this. If we get too far beyond 20, I'll save the second dream for another installment of the Worthiness Wednesday. But this dream is really powerful. And I can imagine some in the audience going, what the hell was that? Vladimir Putin? And then others might be thinking, this is pretty random. But actually, this dream is extremely accurate with regard to where this client is about himself. So dreams are always about ourselves. They're always reflecting back to us the dominant momentum of what's going on in us as pure positive energy. And the people who show up in our dreams typically are aspects of ourselves that are being reflected back to us so that we can see that aspect of ourselves. So this client is on a path, I'm interpreting the dream now. This client is on a path leading to his grandmother's house. It's a windy, uphill path with blind spots. And he's on this path in what he interprets as his car. Cars typically indicate one's life momentum and direction. And so the fact that this car is a manual transmission, which is the same type of car the client has in real life, indicates that the client is really wanting to control his life experience. And yet in the dream, he's in the passenger seat. His mother and his father are in the back seat. And in the driver's seat is Vladimir Putin. So think about this. In the driver's seat of his life is an aspect of himself that is a match to the vibrational image of Vladimir Putin, a dictator, a ruthless, commandeering, cold-hearted authoritarian. And the client wants Vladimir Putin to test out his car. In other words, the client is asking for validation, seeking validation for his life choices from an aspect of himself that is extremely ruthless, cold-hearted, authoritarian, and judgmental. And instead of getting approving validation, the Putin character, which is an aspect of the client, is not so interesting, even though the Putin character drives the car with ruthless, almost careless regard. Then they end up at a pastry shop on the way along this path. The pastry shop represents a sort of respite, a vibrational respite before the climax of this dream occurs. And so the client is interpreting this respite, this pit stop, so to speak, this opportunity for self-indulgence. He's interpreting it in the dream as a pastry shop, which is interesting because later on his father consumes a slice of cake. So this pastry shop not only is representing a respite in the unfolding of this dream experience, but it's also representing the tension the client feels between wanting to indulge himself with lavishness, with ease, with joy, with relaxation, the tension between that and the ruthless judgment he brings to his own life experience. So then after the pastry shop, his father, who's in the back seat, says an insult to the client about Putin, and Putin overhears it. And the client describes Putin as adopting a murderous look. He's going to have the client's father executed. This represents the client's own judgment of his father, which is also the same level of judgment he brings to his own life experience. That's what this dream is showing him. And indeed, the way he lives his life is very similar to the way his father once lived his life. His father has transitioned. And so the Putin character, which is an aspect of the client, overhears the insult. So the father is actually insulting. This is representative of the father insulting the client when the client was younger. And the client is responding as the Putin character to the insults the father has layered on the son throughout his life. It also is representative of, this is so good, the client's own judgment, self-judgment, which is an amplification of his father's past judgment of him, which is why the Putin character adopts this murderous visage. At that point, the Putin character basically verbally excoriates the father, judges him harshly for his slovenly lifestyle, and the Putin character compares the father to himself. They're of the same age, and yet the father's living such a pitiful life, he says. This is the harsh judgment that the client is bringing to his own father. Now, the paradox of this is, and this is why this dream is so good, there's so many good reasons, but one of the reasons is because anywhere you put your attention, where you're putting attention is going to amplify. And this dream is showing the client why he is stuck in his inability to move forward with the practice, because he was unaware that he is so harshly judging his father, while at the same time harshly judging himself for being like his father. That's what this dream is showing him. Then we get to the climax. You think that's the climax, but the climax hasn't come yet. Then we get to the climax. And the climax occurs when the Putin character basically decides that the father is not worth his time. He gives up judging the father. In fact, the Putin character turns away, is no longer interested in what the father is about. This is the transmutational moment of this dream. It's the transmutational moment. This is the value, the biggest value this dream brings to this client. It's showing him in the dream state, in non-physical, that the client has transmuted his judgment of his father into indifference. The father is so insignificant. And in that moment of the dream takes on a different vibrational tenor. But the client isn't aware of this. And so when he comes out of this dream, he doubles down on everything that happened before that transmutational climax. And so I've described this before with clients. I'm going to describe it to you now. This pen represents the liminal space between wake state and dream state. Wake state is up here, dream state is here. When we move through daily life, we build up a bunch of momentum and resistance. And when we go into the dream state, as I said in the previous part of this video, we gather momentum and soothe resistance. We gather momentum on what we want, and we soothe resistance on what's keeping us from having what we want. That's what we do in the dream state. When we come back into wake state, if we're not aware of all the goodness that happened here, or we're interpreting it negatively like this client is, then what happens when we wake up is we just pick up where we left off. And then the cycle repeats. And this is what this client was doing with this dream. He woke from this dream, and rather than feeling the profound transformation that took place in the dream, he doubled down on the negative aspect, which is why it felt like a nightmare to him. Can you see how powerful dreams are? Can you see how important dreams are? How they're telling us where we are on everything we're wanting? And if you don't know the value that the dream is offering, if you don't even know you're dreaming, how can you benefit from the benefit? How can you get the value? You can't. And even if you're dreaming and you're recognizing that you're dreaming, but you're not able to interpret the dreams, you just believe they're random happenings or the end of day processing, the mental processing of your brain dealing with what's happened throughout the day, you're missing the mark. You're not able to glean the value of what happened in the dream state. So this is why dream work is so valuable and why it's a big part of the advanced practice of the positively focused framework. Dreams are sharing so much that we all want to know. And by the way, everybody is dreaming. They just don't know that they're doing that. And those who know, many are unable to understand what the dreams are, which is why when clients first start coming into the dream portion of the positively focused framework, they always describe their dreams as weird or strange. It's because they don't have the lens to be able to interpret the dream accurately. So we're already at 22 minutes. I'm going to stop here. I will do a part 2, Worthiness Wednesday part 2, where we will pick up where we left off and talk about the other dream about the girl he's wanting to attract back into his life and how that dream showed him where he is on that. If you've come this far, thank you for watching. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you care to, and I'll see you in the comments or in the next video.